Hello, welcome back to Navigating the Shift. Annabelle and Sarah here. And let's start with the news.
The news.
So, Academy Awards happened, and
Oh,
that was totally weird. So, the last time we saw the Academy Awards, Ricky Gervais did the most incredible roasting of all the people that were there at the Academy Awards, the actors, the directors, the writers, the producers. He talked about them being Epstein's friends. He talked about a lot of movies about pedophiles. He was really rude to the point where they were cringing and pulling faces at each other. And none of them are there this year. None of them. They decided to host it in the railway station rather than their usual theatre with the ram's head outline around the edge of the stage that they'd normally use. And that was
wow,
all
it's so
gone.
cool.
There was of the winners, there are very few people you'll recognize. I can see a few actors that I know. And there was a piece of footage I'm going to show you here, which is Scarlett Johansson. And it's CGI. You know it's CGI. I mean, she looks gorgeous, but is it her? Because there's a lady that walks behind her and then disappears. And then the guy that's walking with the lady comes out the other side. So there's something seriously strange going on here. Where are these actors? Have they all been removed from society? That would be
So,
very interesting.
and I think the ones that did show up are ones that have flipped and agreed to play this role.
Or they're like
And
Ricky Gervais that were never quite into it in the first place.
right, I was talking about this year more than last year, but I mean, the viewer is so shifted. I read in 2019, they had 29 million views. This year it was 9 million, give or take. I was like, even the regular old media is talking about it and talking about how people don't want to hear all this woke Black Lives Matter stuff anymore. So I think it's more of that leaking of and shifting of the media in order to wake people up to what's really going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
pretty
And getting
interesting.
over the political, they use it for political stand over and over again. Everybody's totally sick of it. There was an article that just came out in Newsweek just today about Fauci saying that he did fund Wuhan on the gain of function viruses. And this is interesting for it to show up in Newsweek that finally mainstream are actually starting to say, well, actually, he had more to do with it than we realize. And this is another good reason for why he was put up front in America to stand there and speak and give advice, when in fact if that had not been done, we would not know who he was. Where it's
True.
important for us to know who we're dealing with here. He would have just slipped underneath the radar, and when he got arrested, we'd be like, well, so who's that? So it
Who's
was
that? Right.
important to bring him out. In Australia, there was an interesting thing happen. So we've talked quite a lot about Victoria and how they've had ridiculous amounts of lockdowns. Their premier is just the worst. And he was signing up with China for what was called the Belt and Road Agreement. This agreement allows China to basically move into Victoria, the state of Victoria, set up shop with any kind of company that they want, and then bid for tenders with the government on infrastructure, building roads, buildings, communications.
Tenders?
Tenders. Do you know what a tender is? It's
No.
when you say, okay, we've got a job to be done, who'd like to do it? And one company will say, well, I can do it, it's going to cost you $30 million.
Got
Well,
it.
I can do it, it's going to cost you $40 million. Those are tenders. And this Belt and Road Agreement would allow China to do that. So he's very proud in public of having good relations with the CCP. And that got scrapped by the federal government this week.
Yay.
No way. So they actually started coming out in our national broadcast media, like your PBS, that's our ABC. They started explaining actually what this Belt and Road Agreement is about and why it was such a bad idea, and that this premier was just going to sign it away, and it was in a conflict of interest with Australian companies. So that was pretty cool. Also in
Yeah.
JCK's group, so we know JCK, she is a psychic she has a big following on YouTube. She's also got a really big group. And of course, when you have an enormous group, they go off on their own to make their own discussions, and they started talking about alien implants and how they often look like a little piece of pencil lead under the skin. And people started posting all these photographs. I've got one too, and I've got one too. And so that was kind of interesting. There's no conclusion we can come to about that, but it's interesting that it would come up. If you've got any strange things under the skin, you can look at those as well. Some of them were saying they felt that it was a way to track, for the good guys, the good aliens, to track people on Earth to make sure they're safe.
Well, I've worked a lot with implants, with mostly energetic implants people have gotten. Like a lot of people, a lot of Syrians, for whatever reason, including me, had an implant in our fifth chakra, and the original intent with it. This is not a physical implant. It was an energetic implant, but the original intent was to help create a communication line outside of the planet so that it wasn't blocked by the frequencies here. But it kind of got distorted over time. And plus, we don't need it anymore. So I've removed a lot of those from people. But that's different from this little mechanical implant.
This is a physical implant that the doctors and the hospitals don't know what to do with. There's stories in there of somebody, ending up in emergency, and they can see it on the x-ray, but they won't talk about it, or they won't do anything about it.
Interesting.
And another woman, she was there in hospital, she just discharged herself after 4 days because nobody would tell her anything. So yeah, it's an interesting subject, and something that's always worth getting some more info on if we can. And the other two things that we have here is India has got to be a really big thing on the world news at the moment. So the idea of people dying in the streets and bodies being burnt on the spot, making a pyre to burn the bodies because there's so many bodies. And so I suggested, Sarah, that you and I tune in and see what we could get. Did you tune in on that one?
I did. Yeah. And right off the bat, I even pulled some cards for it, some tarot cards. And the first one I got was a card that symbolizes the white hats, the alliance, whatever, is the emperor. So I believe, and looking at more and just intuitively checking in, I think the stuff we're getting it's designed to wake people up, more and more of that. Did you see, I think I sent you the video of a British gal in India saying, it's not going on, look around me, this isn't happening, this is fake, nobody's scared, we're all fine.
I did see that. She didn't have an English accent. I don't know what her accent was, but yeah, she said she was going back to England. I heard that. And she was showing the street. She's sitting there in her car.
Yeah, right there. But she also said that culturally it's different there, when people will just like lie down on the street and take naps. Just kind of a normal thing. Plus there's of course a lot of poor people, beggars and so forth, who just sleep out on the streets. So how much of it was that, I don't know. But when I checked into it, I got maybe 30% at most was actually of what's being reported is happening, and that it's mostly being caused as a reaction to the jab rather than the wild disease, as it were. And it could also be calling attention to what happened in India before, where the Gates Foundation went in and people, and all these people died, right? Supposedly against polio, and all of a sudden there's this huge wild rush of polio. It's a fact that, to the point that India said, you guys can't ever come in here again. So this could be a way of pointing at that, which of course will take it back to Gates and Fauci and all that. So that feels right to me, and it makes sense. Just energetically, when I look at the globe and look at the area there, I don't feel dun dun dun. I feel breaking free. Just starting to, but we will.
So for me, when I looked at India, we know that Modi was very much in with Mr. T in America. They absolutely adored him. There was an enormous turnout when Mr. T showed up in India.
That's right.
And Modi feels like a really lovely person. He's on the right track to me. And they also had an enormous amount of ivermectin, I think, that they sent out with zinc and an antibiotic, which cost like $2 per dose. And they spread them all over India just in case there was a problem with this, pathogen. that's been spread around, which they're calling coronavirus, which it's not. And ivermectin is what Australian scientists discovered had 100% effectiveness in knocking off this pathogen as well. That's why they didn't want it widespread in Australia. But it would make sense to do something in India along the plan, part of the plan. And so a long time ago, a few months ago, I tuned in about the media. Actually, I didn't deliberately ask, but I got this very strong message through that more than 90% of the stuff that you see on the news is fake. Like, not even a tiny percentage, but pretty much everything that you see on there is fake. And that was really surprising to me. It was even bigger than 90%. It felt like almost everything on there, which seemed crazy to me. So when I saw dead bodies and pyres on the streets, and I'm like, okay, so what is that about? And I said, is there a problem in India? And I got a kind of a yes general, like a general problem, not a thing that's just happened over the last week. I said, okay, so what is the main problem? And the answer that came back was nutrition, because there's a lot of very, very poor people there, like desperately poor, and no social welfare in the way that Australia and America is looked after. So I think I'm not sure if part of this, I know what you're saying, and drawing it back to the two main culprits in America. But I wonder if there is something in there also about looking after people generally in India, that it's about time they were cared for. You don't just leave people starving on the street or with no leg or whatever. I mean, the problem with the polio, injecting live virus or live pathogen into all those children in poor villages so that they all ended up with polio, it's just appalling. And that's when they threw him out. And all of that information has been scrubbed. So I read about that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I was amazed at it, because I was also looking at the issue with Kenya. I think it was Kenya, where he went in there, or he went in with the WHO, and they were supposedly doing a run of shots for something fairly general, I think, a fairly general disease.
I think it was like I think it was chickenpox or something like that.
Something fairly general, or mumps.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah. And then the Catholic missionaries, who are a very important part of the health system there, took these shots and took them to 6 different independent labs and discovered they had abortion drugs in them, where it would not only abort, but it would make those girls sterile. And it was given to many, many, many girls in poor villages in Kenya that made them all sterile. So I guess all this information is slowly coming out, and India might be a way to maybe, let's just watch and see if the storyline heads in that direction and people go, actually, all the ones that died, they might have had a shot, or let's just see where they take it as to why that narrative is kicking in.
Right. That makes sense. Did you see the photos that Lynn Wood put out on Telegram? That lawyer? Did you see those?
I saw one.
He took a picture of himself with Trump, but that was actually from earlier.
Yeah.
But he wrote all these comments about looking, what did he call him? Looking for Joey. He's not in the White House. Where could he be? Maybe I should go look at Castle Rock Studios. Oh, he's not there either. I'm just like, such fun trolling.
Yeah.
I like seeing really that on my thread.
Yeah, that is funny. And you were telling me about another one with Mr. Poole as well. So Mr. Poole's a very mysterious new Twitter account that came up with all the waves in New Zealand with I think it was the Auckland Sky Tower behind it. And then like a few days later was the tsunami warning on the east coast of New Zealand. We talked about this a few episodes ago, where there were earthquakes, and then a tsunami warning, which took everybody, not only were they locked down, but then they were taken away from the east coast so they couldn't see what was going on. And then there was no tsunami. So he had something else to say?
Just the most recent tweet was of a film from Greenland of big waves coming up onto the beach, and you can see people and small boats floating around, and people like picking stuff off the beach. And then at the end of it, there's this huge wave that rushes up, and they're like Jesus, run, and they take off running. So that, and there's been several people on YouTube talking about mud floods or flooding, talking about the dam, the Three Gorges Dam and things like that. And we wanted just to have a look, is there a bunch of flooding coming? Is flood symbolic? Does it mean a flood of information? What did you get when you looked at it?
I've only just heard this information, so I haven't really tuned in. I've only looked at what other people were saying. Some of them were saying physical flooding, which of course scares the pants off people, and that does not feel right to me, to scare everybody, whatever it is going to be. If they really had to do something like that, then they wouldn't tell us, because fear is not helpful right now. And the second thing was, I think it was Michelle Fielding, she was tuning in, she felt it was information. This idea of being in Greenland, one of the people commenting underneath the video said Greenland to do with greenback. This is to do with the new financial system.
Wasn't Greenland where they had all those underground bases and stuff, and that Trump tried to buy it and everything?
Yes, that was a while ago, wasn't it? A couple of years ago, I think.
Mm-hmm. So I wonder what Mr. Poole is pointing at as far as Greenland again, because it's definitely wanting to call attention to it. And right before we started, I pulled some tarot cards, and I got for, what's the question? It came out the sun, and that's like the most optimistic. It's called highly aspected. It's it's a beautiful card. It isn't saying, oh, it's certainly not saying flooding. It's not water. It's sunshine. It's the beautiful sun and sunflowers and things like that. This does not speak to me of a physical flood and loss of life. And in the back was like, what was the background when immediately happened? So that speaks defeat to me. I mean, really? That's the card. Yeah. I mean, you can see it, obviously it is. Then what's going on right now is the Knight of Pentacles. So the Pentacles is an earth sign. Once again, we're not getting a water. That's cups. I didn't get any cups in my reading, which would be water. And this card represents a period of time when the sun is in Taurus, and he does his homework. He's hardworking. The perseverance, attention to detail. So there's a lot of people working on whatever it is that's coming out. And what I get is another card was the Four of Swords. So swords would be, this one would be swords is mental. So that would be information. And that was what was going on. We defeated their old information. And now there's things that have been hidden. So there's three swords above and one below. So it's like a hidden kind of information. But then next to that is the Wheel of Fortune, which is flipping things the other way. It's a really positive card. And that is aspected right next door by the King of Wands. And that's another white hat. That's a good guy. So these things, this is the outcome is flipping things, and it's swords. So I think you're right, or whoever got that. It was like we're not having a literal flood, because didn't God in the Bible promise he'd never destroy the planet by water again, something like that. So I think it's going to be a flood of information. And thinking about the dam, I bet there's a bunch of like secret information underneath that dam.
Oh, that's what we were going to talk about. Yeah. Now, when you had told me that the other day, I was thinking about so many movies we've seen where, like spy movies or James Bond kind of things, where they go into a dam, that there are stories and stories of rooms inside the wall of the dam. So there's room to do stuff in a dam. And if you're going to blow the dam, if it's going to fall apart and flood further downstream, it's going to affect whatever they were doing within those rooms.
Right. I wonder if what's in there is like what's under the Vatican, the secret library for the Asian world.
It feels experimental to me rather than trading or
there might be. Right. The idea is like, think about under the Vatican. They've taken all the wisdom and hidden it away, and they're doing nasty stuff under there with people and demons and stuff.
Used to be.
So they used to be. So maybe what'll become out is what was going on, but at the same time, the information of the positive stuff.
Mm.
That would work for me.
Yeah, there was another thing that came up on one of the Facebook groups recently, talking about 1st of May being a big Satanist thing, and how they work their way up to a certain number of days in their rituals and their ceremonies and all the rest. And even as I was reading it, I thought, it's gone. It's not completely gone, but the top end of the hierarchy has all been removed. And I said, I can see halls where these rituals used to happen that are not only empty, but they're dusty. This has been done for a wee while. It's been cleared out a wee while ago now, and they're just not there. So although the lower levels will take a while to clean up, all their organization and their seniors have gone, already cleaned up and gone.
The symbolism of that, looking at it with is it information, but that's also communication. They can't communicate with each other anymore.
Right.
Their communication is shut down. I'm thinking about the satellites that got shut down over various times and supposedly taken over by the good guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be good. So I just this week ran into, I can't wait any longer, just do it. It's like, I know, I got no patience left. I know, I understand we've got to balance out, you can't do it too fast. The shock is too much. People can't handle it. But I'm like, I've been aware of this stuff for 50 years, man, almost 50 years on some level. And it's like, I can't take it anymore. Awake people are suffering on this side because we're going on and on and on. It's like,
I know.
But I pulled some cards because it's been such a strong feeling for me. I'm like, no, just hang out, plant your garden, stay focused on here. But it just kept roaring through me. And what I got then was that there are still possible. We looked at what percentage of the children underground and DUMBs and the underground bases and so forth have been rescued. And it was like it's all but 20%. There's a few more left, all this stuff. And it's like, okay, but yeah, they're suffering too. If that's still going on because you don't want the people who are brainwashed to suffer, you've got two huge groups of other people who are suffering by letting it go on. But then the hit I got, and the cards confirmed it, was that it actually has to do, you have to bring it together, that if the balance isn't just to prevent suffering of the newly awakened people, but also that there are still some things that are there that the dark side could do that will cause massive loss of life.
Still.
And not just underground. Yeah, not just underground, but we could be threatened, they could be threatened. So it allowed me to calm down a little.
Yeah,
it's so hard.
We do need to get this reassurance, isn't it? Isn't it sad that we need to do that? But we do, and you can get it within yourself. That's the most comforting place to get it. So as you were talking, I realized that I did actually ask about the floods. And yeah, the way I like to do it is to write to myself. I write to Big Annabelle, higher self Annabelle. And I'd been asking a bundle of things along my own life path. But at the end here, I just was feeling so bad about the idea that there might be a physical flood, wherever it may be in the world. I know it's not going to cover the whole world. I knew that. But no matter where it was going to be. And so I asked for some help in expressing that, and this is what came through. And I was sort of saying, asking God, the creator, I said, I know our planet must go through immense change to move to the next level. And it kind of gets, the answer comes through as I speak. Slow disclosure would take decades, and we're impatient to clean up. So it is our collective that has requested a faster track. That means raw exposure. some of it truly shocking. Even those of us who knew a bit more will get an education. We have requested it, and so it has been given. I ask for mercy on the humans who are uninformed about the consequences of their actions and thoughts. I ask for mercy on those who were coerced into what they did. And even as I say this, I realize this is already the case. The mercy's been given. The karma, this is really interesting, the karma comes for those who have strayed deliberately out of greed and lust in this lifetime or another resonant life. All resonant lives with these souls will feel the wrath at once, and history will be changed. This is the cleanup requested. A beautiful new world awaits, a sunrise that brings such a glorious, loving glow, such wonder, and this is, I could feel this, such fresh air, new colors, smells, and sounds that will delight you, a clean,
Nice.
clear mind, a body that is lighter. All the earth will pulse with joy. The trees, the sea, the grasses, the rocks, the dolphins, the birds, such great joy.
Woo!
How cool is that? So I went to bed
really
that night
nice.
like, yeah, okay. You know, you've got to find it within yourself, these answers. That makes all, you can watch all the different people on the internet, including us, and go, well, that might be right and that might be right. But the only way you can really find your security is within your own message, your own self.
That makes me think of something that happened to me a night ago, or as I was going to sleep last night or the night before. You know, in that in-between period as you're starting to drift off, but all of a sudden I got this huge message that, you know, it really is done. The choice is made, not just the choice is made, but now as you can see it in physical reality. The pentacles is physical reality. We've got this wonderful Knight of Pentacles that came up. It could be like confirming that. And I just like, the feeling was like you've been, it's the winter, wherever you live, it's cold and snowy, and you've been working really hard and it hasn't been fun, and you've got this vacation planned in a beautiful sunny place. But then, I don't know, maybe a pandemic comes along and maybe you won't be able to go and all this stuff goes on. And then it was like the moment when you landed from you're in the airport, not in the airport, you come through the airport in this beautiful destination and you're in your beautiful home on the beach. It's like, it's done.
That's
I like
a great
that
feeling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. And we still do need a little bit of reassurance, don't we? Because then we'll hear new things coming up and going, well, which part of that is in the plan? But it's okay. Everything's okay.
I would suggest that, as you're drifting off to sleep at night, if you want to get more intuitive, set the intention. I would like to, one, remember my dreams, and I choose to be sent a dream right now that'll give me information about what's really going on or whatever your questions are. You can't develop these skills if you don't practice. Have a diary, a dream diary, or any little intuitive things you have. And that reinforces that, I remember now. Last month I had a dream about that, and now it's just happened. So the thing that stops us from being able to do this is this mental block that says, no, I can't do that. It's never worked before. But often we missed how many times it worked before because we forget and we don't keep track of it.
That might make a really good conversation, actually, at some stage when there's not much news, is how to interpret your dreams. Maybe we should do one like that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Well, thanks for watching. Do the whole like, share thing. Glad to be on this ride with all of you.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.